lecture, what we were discussing was this records concept. At that point, we only discussed the we were not able to do the practicals as I can remember. Just to refresh what is record, I thought of starting from some slides we were discussing about in our last lecture. Anyway, before I start, do we have any questions regarding whatever the things we discussed as well as the practicals? So when I do the lecture, I ask you to do some practicals and you can do small changes to the programs and observe the output. I think you are familiar with the PL/SQL environment. I introduced you Oracle Express developer version. With that, you can easily manage your code and you can save all your work without any problem. I think now you understand to do some coding work in that environment, right? If you have any questions when you do the practicals and homework, you can ask. Just to refresh what we discussed, in Oracle, we have another data type called record. It's a composite data type. It can have combination of different scalar data types like characters, varchar, numbers, and so on. Right? Each scalar data type in a record holds a value. Right? I think you can recall your memory on arrays. In arrays, we had only one data type, but many values in the same data type. Right? If it is an integer array, then you have many elements of the type integer. But here in the record, you can have many data types. Right? But you refer that particular record as a given name, right? That is the main difference, kind of a structure. When you want to create a record from a subset of data of a table, you can easily use this way, and it makes you much faster processing of records than retrieving again and again from the database. Right? You can get a chunk of data at once and place it in the memory, and you can then after you do not need to repeatedly call the database and get the things from database side. Right? Therefore, you can save a lot more processing time. A record can be visualized as a row of data. Now, if you take a row of a table, it's a typical example to this particular data type, right? The record. But you can, you do not want to get all the fields, all the attributes. You can selectively get the number of attributes according to your requirement, right? Or if you want, you can get all the content of a particular row. That is also possible. Right. With that, we look at the declaration. First, you have to define a composite data type, then declare a record of that composite data type, right? Let's say it's my composite data, then you have to declare another record using my composite data, right? Then syntax is to define a composite data type is you have to start from declare, then type, then your record type name, then this keyword, this record type name can be any name you wish to give. Then is keyword, then your first column and its data type, right? Here we are going to map your variable name into the relevant column of the database table, right? Therefore, you have to have a matching data type for these values, right? For an example, if you are going to retrieve employee name from the table and assigning it to a variable called my employee name, then you should have compatible data types. Right? Otherwise, if you have defined your employee name as Vacha, then if you are using this Vacha 2 or whatever any other then you are not going to retrieve from the database and hold in the this particular variable because the data types mismatch. Therefore, you have to keep that in mind. Then after, the syntax is simple. You can separate from the command and give other column names and data types respectively. Right? Then you have to give a record type name, right? Then which you are going to give the name of the composite data type. Then first column name, second column name, and so on according to the number of columns you define here, right? If you have 5, then you should have 5 here. Those are the names of fields, columns within the record, right? You have to map these things, right? Then column data type. So this defines the scalar data type of the field. Now we look at an example, then you get to know about that. You can edit these codes and you can execute in the PLSQL environment. Here I have set the server output on because just from the server side. That is the only purpose. Here onwards, after the declaration, we are going to do this record code snippet. You have to first do the declaration, then type, as I told you, here the declare type, then my name is rec in this record. So I have declared the record data type. I have declared the record, then within the parentheses, you have to define your variables. These variables are going to hold the values from the record, right? Now if you take at the select statement here, the same variable is referred there. We are going to select employee ID, last name, salary, right? Last name, salary. These are defined by my own names, but these names are employee ID, last name, salary are in the actual table in the database. So I'm getting these employee ID and assigning to my employee ID. Then I get last name and assigning to my last name. Then salary, I retrieve the salary from the database table and put it into my salary. Right? That is how it happens. Then we have to use the syntax, your record name dot my employee ID. That is how we do the assignment, right? We retrieve these from select and we put them into employee record, my record type dot employee ID. Then an employee record last name. Then an employee record dot my salary. We are going to retrieve these data from the employees table where the employee ID is 150, right? Then this I retrieved, right? I think you can try this out. To do that, you may need an employees table. Do you have it in your machines? In your SQL environment, you can just you have that. You can just you can have select all from employees. You can observe the output. The important thing is you should have this last name, employee ID, last name, salary. I don't know whether it is there. Not, I will send you some file via chat. Then you can copy and paste them into the and then you can execute that. First, quickly check in your environment whether you have that. There I have employee table. If you have already an employee table, employees table, there you have to drop it first, right? Then you have to use drop table employees, and then you can recreate the table with my sample codes and you can do the insertions. I have included everything there. Then after you can insert the data and you can finally do a select all statement to check whether your table is populated correctly. Quickly do it and let me know whether you are able to do that. When you do your practicals, you can save all your practicals as a new SQL file, and then it would be very helpful for you to prepare for the final exam, because you know all your practicals and you can quickly refresh your knowledge using your own hands-on experience. able to uh, create the table with my script. So before you type this record code snippet, you should have the table properly created. Otherwise, this would definitely give you some errors. These fields are not going to match with the table. Did you do that part? Those who have computers can do this. Did you able to get the file and create the first table as I gave you in my script? Right. It worked successfully, no? Then yeah, did you try this one as well? The example. Is it working now? It should work. I have. Right. Check your error messages. Will just report errors in your output panel and check what you have done wrong. If you have properly created, it should work because today morning also I worked with that before I get this code into presentation. I did it in the atmosphere express environment and then I put that into presentation slide. Therefore, the same code should work in the environment as well. Check whether there are any mistakes. It can be a single mistake in a quotation mark or whatever it is. Here this is going to be a comment on this details available of the defined type. It is not just a comment. Before you type this calling, you should have my script executed. To do that, before you execute that script, you should check whether there is an existing table called employees. Right? You can see it in the GUI as well. You do not need to write the code. Even your left hand side panel, there's a hierarchy. With that you can open the tables of the system database. Then you can check whether that is available. And you can have a small code if you want, select all from employee. With that you can see the available columns, or you can write describe employees, then semicolon. With that you can get the description of existing table. Right? If it is not the table I have given you, then you should drop that table using drop table command. Then you can execute my SQL script. You can execute it by little by little. First you can copy the create table content and then execute that. Then after you can get the insert into statements and paste it into the text editor, and you have to select those script always in your environment. Remember to select what you are going to execute, right? That is the best practice. Otherwise all the things in the text editor executes. Right? If there was a drop table command, then that also execute, then you do not have nothing in the database at that time. Therefore, you should always remember that before you execute, you have to select from the mouse the set of lines to be executed. Someone send me the output. Actually, if you are stuck with some at some point, you just send me the error output via chat, then I can have a look. You also can read from the output panel of the error in the error report. So you first read the first line, second line, likewise. Then there has to be some clue there where to look in. And when you copy and paste to the environment, sometimes you check whether the content you copied are having some formats, right? For example, some quotation marks may have different fonts formats in rich text formats, right? If you open it in something like WordPad or Microsoft Word, then you may have some formats there. Then if you copy that content into SQL, it takes a different character. Sometimes, especially this single quotation marks may get a different format. Then due to that, you may get some errors. In Aloka's code error, it is reporting that select keyword is missing, right? Did you check that not only the select keyword, is there something wrong with the select statement? Yes. Uh, uh, is record keyword? No, that is the syntax. It should work because that is the syntax there. Check whether you have written correctly that this in its record you have to declare this my employee ID and my last name and my salary. Those are the names given by you, right? You can give any name, and in the select statement you check whether you have correctly typed that names. That is why I use this color. Right? Blue colors given for the employee ID. So all the places in my coding where I have referred employee ID, I have given in that color coding. That is just to give you some idea. In the same way, check the other, my last name has been my last name. It is different in the table, right? If you take here, in table select statement, it has to be the last name, the actual name in the table, right? Not the name you have given. This name is for your reference. This is the actual name in the table. Right? You check whether you have typed it as required, and then after let me know. it's good that Ketika has done it correct. I have seen output via the chat. So that type of output has to be there. And now Ketika can change this small change. You can make small changes to your code in this record example and try to observe different outputs. Practice how to create create a record out of the table, and also you can familiar with the syntax in the column names and other fields, and especially employee ID, or you can totally change into some another requirement and make and create a record out of that. Right, it's good now. At least several of you have attempted that. they have gotten the required output. With that, you can try this size. That is actually a very small one to modify the PL SQL code to get the employee ID as a user input. Try to do that. You just need only one line of code. This is just to refresh what we did in our previous lecture. Right, that is not that much hard. This is how we can do that thing. So we should not waste time on that. You can get it in this manner. Accept your variable name, prompt, enter employee ID. This is what is going to print in the console. That value is going to get to the variable called edum. Then you can refer that in your code. Right? So I have not included that part here, so you can include that and try. Okay. It is a kind of dynamic thing now. This is hard coded. So when you want to create the record, you can get it passed as a parameter even. Right? When we discuss about the functions, you can create a function to declare a record. Right? So depending on the requirement, you call the function and pass the employee ID or whatever it is as a parameter. Then you can create a more dynamic one. Otherwise, this is specific to employee ID 150. Okay? So to avoid hard coding this employee ID, you can create much more dynamic codes. It's the best way. See that we move to the next exercise actually. You can try to do this quickly. If you haven't done it, you can send me the code. If you have stuck in some place, you can just ask me. Right, some of you have done the exercise. So you use exercise number 3. So you can attempt this as well. Do you have any problems regarding this exercise? If you have, you can just send me the error report or whatever the thing where you have stuff. Right. Then we can go to the next section, which is called raw type. It's similar to records. This is the other type of composite data available. So you can create a record of a table. So for an example, you can create an employee record in this way. Underscore it's the employee record name. Then it is the employee table and percentage mark, then row type and semicolon. So we look at and way we can pass values from a record row type. When we assign values to a record, you can actually assign values to the field within it. Right? You can select a particular field and you can assign the value. For an example, record name dot column name, then your value. if you use row type to declare record, then you can assign values in this order. Record name, column name, and assignment operator, and value. These both are looks the same. Now we will be looking at we can use select statement to create a row type. Right. To do that, you have to use select keyword, then your respective columns of the table separated by comma, and then into keyword, then your record name dot column name, first column name, then record name dot second column name, likewise record name dot any number of columns you can map in this manner. Then from table, right here the table name has to be defined. Then they are closed. It's much similar to the row type. The record we declared and retrieve value to populate the record. Then you can use this syntax to assign values using a select statement. If row type is used, then you must use, if this percentage mark row type is used, then you must select all the columns as follows. Right? Select into record name from table name where close. Right? Here you should use select all into, because you have not specified any of the columns. Right? If you have specified columns, then you can follow this syntax. If you have not particularly defined the set of columns to be included, then you have to follow this syntax. Now you look at an example. This is how you get values from a row type record. It can be any variable name you declared, then assignment operator, your record type, then the variable name. Right? Here what you do is you are going to retrieve employee name out of this employee. Right? And it is assigned to the variable called employee name. Right? I think it should be clear to you. The syntax is very simple. Here is an example. You can go through the example and you can try to code this in the SQL environment and observe the output. And you can quickly do this. And once you have done, let me know. what we discussed, you can try this exercise, and doing these small exercises, you will be gradually improving your PLSQL knowledge, and you should be able to use what we discussed with combining all together in different scenarios, right? So you can quickly attend this as well, and do not keep silent. Once we have done, let me know. And if you have stuck in one place, then also let me know what where you stuck. With that, you can solve your problem and improve your knowledge. Quickly attend this one. Here, instead of student table, you can, if it is not, you can the employees table, right? If you have created a student table already, then you can use that table. If it is not, then you can use the employees table. Right. If you do not have it, we just look at what are the advantages and disadvantages of declaring record as a type. The disadvantage would be you do not need to explicitly declare variables for all the columns in the table. Right? As I told you, if you declare a particular variable, the composite variable type using raw type, so you do not need to specify each individual columns. Here we have selected all the columns. Likewise, you can omit that part. Therefore, you do not need to explicitly declare variable for all the columns. And if you alter column specification, if the database table, you do not need to update the code. Right? Let's say you alter this particular table. Let's say you altered employee table. Then you do not need to update this because it already takes all the columns. And there are some disadvantages as well. When created a record as a raw type, the fields will be created for all the columns in the table, right? So opposed to this one, we know it's easy in some occasions, but it is a disadvantage in some time because you cannot limit it with all the rows, right? The columns. And then it will use much memory because there can be unwanted fields. Therefore, you use raw type only when you are using all the columns of the same table in a program. Right? You have to keep that in mind. That is very important regarding this declaring record as a raw type. Right? Then when you are creating a record, you are just creating a data type and it is much similar to creating a variable. Right? We have already done that part. Then you have to assign values to record in order to use them. You should take this particular table is shows you different ways to define record and declare a record. This is for your information, and we have covered this one in exercises as well, and we did some examples. With this syntax, you can create or declare a record. These are different syntaxes. Do you have any questions now? There, we have to run the new section. Uh, Before that, we check whether you are comfortable enough in this set of things we discussed. In my next lecture, I'm trying to cover that part of conditional statements. Here are the examples and sample syntaxes of assigning values. Right? In case of record, you have to refer the record name, then your column name. We have already covered these exercises as well as the examples. And before we do the exercise, we have done examples. If you recall your memory, then you find these things. And this is just a summary. Okay. If you do not have any questions, we can wind up for today. And you understood, and it's your duty to do the practicals. And as I heard, many of you are doing well, as well as some of you do not have enough facility to do the practicals. Right? Anyway, those who do not have, try your best to arrange that. And one of you told me that your machine is not working and it is being prepared. Anyway, it's your duty to do that thing without waiting to the last minute, right? And you can ask them, that is, right? If you just go through the video or lecture materials, it won't help you. Lecture materials does not talk to you, and even the recording is of the past, right? If you have not asked any question, there is no clarification there. That is why I am encouraging you to do with me and ask you a question. Then I give the answers to your question. If you are waiting to get the answers for others' question, it is someone else's question, not your question. That is important thing when you things and combine all the things at the end, and then with that method you gradually improve your coding as well as the knowledge.